Here we go, family. I believe I fixed a problem here. I'm sorry about the no audio there for the first couple of minutes or so. But I wanted to dive into this conversation very quickly because it's important we understand the distinct differences between Marcel Dixon and James E. Clyburn. We understand that James E. Clyburn has been in his seat since 1993. And James E. Clyburn is a representative over a majority Black district with some of the poorest districts in the state of South Carolina. Now, what's important about Marcel Dixon is that, in my opinion, from my research, he's one of the first serious Black representatives, possible representatives, to face someone on the likes of James E. Clyburn, but actually speak to Black America itself without speaking past or over or insinuating to the Black community, whether it be for his state, his district, or national or federally for the entire U.S. So, these things are to be marveled at in a sense for a short period of time to see if he actually puts his mouth where the action should be. So with that being said, let's break down this a little bit as far as James E. Clyburn is concerned, family. And for you guys who may not be familiar with James E. Clyburn, I want to make sure you get eyes on the candidate here. So you guys may be familiar with the majority whip, who is like the third ranking of the Democratic Party. So the reason why that's important because he has major influence, major connections, and his pockets run deep to keep him in his seat. Okay. So we're going to further here. I'm going to show you the rest of his cabinet. He has the senior senator for South Carolina, which is Lindsey Graham, and as well as the junior senator for South Carolina, which is Tim Scott. I do apologize for those who came on. The audio was out for a couple of minutes, and so we're a couple of minutes behind. Nonetheless, we're going to cover this. And then we have James Jim Crow Clyburn, representative for South Carolina, 6th Congressional District. Okay, he's been in this seat since 1993. Now, James E. Clyburn is the majority whip and the third ranking Democrat in the United States House of Representatives. Just think power, just think authority, just think influence when you think of James E. Clyburn. You've seen him on TV, you've seen him on CNN. He is the poster child, he is the poster boy for the Democratic Party. So something else I want to bring to you guys' attention here, as I made some wild claims, but so did the Washington Post, okay? Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, I did have some technical difficulties, so I am operating here with half of my resources. Now, if you stay here, this is a story that Washington Post came out in 2020 stating that in South Carolina, anti-poverty program is recast as reparations, okay? Anti-poverty program is recast as reparation. And what's important about this is this recast anti-poverty program was for the district of James E. Clyburn, was majority Black, but they also have other groups of people as well. So not just for Black Americans within those districts. Highlighted, you see House Majority Whip James E. Clyburn, whose district encompasses 8 of the state's poorest counties, okay? Very, very important that you understand, since this guy's been in seat since 1993, he has not passed any significant legislation to help the majority population of his district, what are melanated Black Americans, to essentially close the wealth gap, at least in that district, as well as the state of South Carolina. Now, I'm no citizen of South Carolina, but I believe that the candidate who's running, and I said I believe, I don't know, who's running in South Carolina will be a much better candidate than James E. Clyburn. But again, his pockets run deep. He has a lot of political power and influence. So it will be an uphill battle for Marcel Dixon, nonetheless. Let me move on. Now, some of those counties, some of you guys may be familiar with and not familiar with, but the number one county has the largest constituents in is Beaufort County, South Carolina, okay? So now let me enlighten you with some of the things from James's Clyburn, okay, James's Clyburn Twitter page. And I just want you to pay close attention, family. Very, very important you pay close attention to some of the things I'll be going over here. And it's going to be very, very quick when we come to his Twitter page, okay? So first and foremost, as we're looking at this, okay, I'm going to blow this up for you guys. I once heard, this is James E. Clyburn. I once heard that poor people don't have lobbyists. Well, the residents of the 6 congressional districts have got me. Okay, let me read that again. I heard once that the poor people don't have lobbyists. Well, the residents of the 6 congressional districts have got me. I don't know what that means exactly, family. If you guys can enlighten me saying, hey, I know the people of my district are poor, but they got me. I have no idea what that means, okay? Because again, when I look at the proof, when I look at the research tells me that, yeah, you have some of the poorest counties in your state, and the wealth gap has not changed at all. If anything, it's gotten worse under your under your supervision. That's what that tells me about James E. Clyburn off the back, that his districts within his state, under his tutelage, under his authority, under his position, has gotten poor since he's been in office. Okay. Now, anyone can fact check this. It's very, very easy. All this stuff is very public. Okay. So that's one thing claim he made on his Twitter page. Now, here's another of his Twitter page I just thought was hilarious. I thought I'd just share with you guys. This is absolutely hilarious. James E. Clyburn says, thanks to the hard work of the Biden-Harris administration, Christmas gifts are arriving on time. Store shelves are stocked, and the U.S. is ready for the holiday season. So he is thanking the president and the president's administration for your Amazon packages getting there on time. It's just lemonade. Oh, James E. Clyburn, I tell you. The boot licking just get better in time, doesn't it? He started off as a young ass cooker. Now he's a good old boot licker. He's just getting better with time. That's what they said about wine. It gets better with time. And last but not least, which is hilarious in his Twitter feed, that I must share this with you guys because there's some very alarming and triggering language that I just want to warn you prior to you listening to James E. Clyburn, because a lot of times when you're just kind of listen and a neutrality position, you may not catch them on some of the key words that people are speaking about. And he made sort of a insinuation or joke early on that I want you guys to pay attention to that was directed at the American descendant of slaves. Okay, the American descendant of slaves. He's going to say something about 1619, but it has to do with the Catawba Indian nation. Okay, so I'm going to read this quick excerpt, and then we're going to get into the small video here. But listen to this. Pleased to see the bipartisan Catawba Indian Nation Lands Act passed the House today. This legislation is a significant step towards rectifying, listen to this, this legislation is a significant step towards rectifying historic injustices perpetrated against the Catawba Indian Nation and critical to helping them secure economic self-sufficiency. What does that sound like to you, ladies and gentlemen? This is a congressman for South Carolina who encompasses some of the poorest districts, but continue to do things for other people than the people that he actually resembles. Okay, so let's get into the video very quickly. It's going to be short. YouTube, this is fair use for educational purposes. Okay.
Are 1619. That's a very interesting. This legislation known as the Catawba 1619. That's a very, for a favorable vote on HR 1619. That's a very interesting number for this legislation.
Yeah, it is very interesting.
This legislation known as the Catawba Indian Nations Lands Act. The Catawba Indian Nation Lands Act clarifies that the Catawba Indian Nation is subject to the well-established rules and regulations of the Indian Game and Regulatory Act on their modern and ancestral lands in the state of North Carolina. This legislation will clarify the tribe's 1993 Land Claims Settlement Act and reaffirm recent action taken by the Department of Interior to take land into trust for the tribe. Most importantly, this bipartisan legislation is a very significant step towards rectifying historic injustices that have been perpetrated against the Catawba Indian Nation.
Can I pause that right there, family? Because what's important here is when you see someone of his caliber, his position, his influence, his authority, just how long he's been in Congress, stand up for a nation prior to his own people with the extent time that he's been in that position. I mean, his tenure since 1993, he has been known to stand up for every other group except for his own. In some of the same language, the injustices and rectifying economic self-sufficiencies, et cetera, sounds a lot like reparations for the Indian tribe, which I'm not hating on. But again, he's been in their office since 1993 and has nothing for his people. Number one. Now, number two, the biggest ploy of them all is that now that he's having someone who has significant influence race against him, he'd rather not debate the brother prior to the primaries. See, this is when you know that you are for a particular purpose and reason, as far as you being a puppet on a string like James E. Clyburn for the Democratic Party. And then those who may come out and support him. And the question is this: why is he continue to do things for other people except for the people that resemble him? Highly melanated Black Americans.
Like in many other instances of current effects of historical inequities, the Catawba Nation experiences high unemployment and poverty rates, causing many of its citizens to rely upon federal and state governments for basic social service.
Family, who does that sound like? Who has high unemployment, who depends on the government for self-sustaining funds for food, healthcare, etc. Who else is at a higher risk than the Catawba Indian Nation? And again, this is not a ploy, or this is not a plot against them to essentially undercut what they will receive from this administration. But this is a comparison of someone who's been in office since 1993, who has absolutely nothing to lose except for his position and power. The man is a millionaire. He really has nothing to lose at his age, that he's going to pass down generational wealth of slave money, essentially, for what he's done, not only to the state of South Carolina and his districts and the counties within, but also to the entire Black Americans nationwide. This is my perspective, okay? Prove me wrong if you can. I'm just saying. It's not a debate. Just prove me wrong.
The enactment of this legislation is critical to helping the Catawba Indian Nation secure economic self-sufficiency as Congress originally intended when it passed the Indian
He
Gaming.
said that is absolutely critical. He said that it's absolutely critical that the Catawba Indian Nation and helping them secure economic self-sufficiency. When have you ever heard James E. Clyburn say that for Black Americans, American descendant of slaves? I know you have not. So I first came upon Marcel Dixon a couple of months back. I was just on YouTube looking at random videos, and I forgot where his first video, I forgot who first interviewed him, but I know the last two interviews that I saw from him was from Phil Scott and also from Hip Hop TD Media, or TD Hip Hop Media, where I saw some short clips and interviews of Marcel Dixon, which made me very intrigued about the brother and do some research on him. So what we're going to do is we're going to definitely talk about him. I'm going to read a lot of what he has posted publicly on his congressional page, which is marcelforcongress.com. That's marcelcongress.com. And I know a lot of people like to ask, am I promoting him? Am I supporting him? Well, again, I have to look at things very historically. There's been no one in the past 20 to 30 years of any significance, in my opinion, who has ran and gotten this much publicity and or headwind in order to really give someone who's been in the seat as long as James Clyburn any run for their money. Now, as we go through some of his life stories, his background, and what he's about, me personally, I was very intrigued. I was very enthused about some of the things he had to say. Now, granted, what makes him different, and now I want you to keep that in the back of your mind, family, what makes Marcel Dixon different from any other politician who has insinuated, who has geared around helping Black Americans indirectly, because never directly. You will never hear politicians say, I'm going to help Black Americans directly. You will never hear them say that. They would say people of low income that will affect Black Americans because they know that that includes white people and other people of low status and low financial economic stability. So you won't really hear that from them. But let's get into it. I don't want to bore you any long, but I'm just going to get right into it, family. Like I said, I'm working at half mast here. And I'm going to read some of this, okay? Bear with me here, family. I want to first go to his childhood, if you don't mind. I want to first go to Marcel's childhood. Now, some of these things I'm going to skip over because it's quite lengthy, but I encourage you to go to his website and read this a lot for yourself. Gregg Marcel Dixon, a third of his parents' high school sweethearts, 4 children, is Georgia born. The port city of Savannah in South Carolina raised, just minutes away in the small rural town of Ridgeland. Both areas are home to the Sea Island Creoles, or as they are better known, the Gullah-Geechee, a Black American ethnic group native to the Sea Islands and the Lowcountry of the Gullah-Geechee Corridor, where his family has resided since at least the mid-1700s. Even though he was a student of the Jasper County South District, South Carolina's lowest performing district, a very troubled school system, part of the state's so-called corridor of shame, his childhood says, especially the earliest parts, we marked by love, happiness, and his rich, unique culture. He grew up with a large, immediate, and extended family that included his mother, his grandmother, his great-grandmother, and his great-grandfather, his 2 granduncles, his 2 uncles, his 2 aunts, his 2 cousins, and his 3 siblings. His great aunts and cousins providing him and his siblings with a constant source of companionship, affection, camaraderie, and the protection in their longtime community along a busy stretch of coastal highway that connected his town to the more popular Lowcountry destinations of Hilton Head Island, Beaufort, and Savannah. From all, he witnessed overwhelming compassion and empathy as they clothed, fed, protected, and housed many in need, even though they were all people of modest means themselves. It was truly a wonderful time in his life. However, there was also deep pain, the pain of poverty, premature death, drug addiction, domestic violence, mental illness, unaddressed trauma, sickness, and the damaging legacy of anti-Black racism. Both his parents had suffered deep losses in their childhoods. His father's died when he was just a tender age of 6 from a heroin overdose. Her mother, his dear grandmother, suffered from decades from illnesses to which she would eventually succumb 4 days after Marcel's 9th birthday as a result of an allergic reaction to a blood transfusion given to her during a challenging pregnancy. His father's mother was also severely addicted to drugs for a time, during which he was raised in abject poverty by his elderly grandparents, his great-grandparents, okay? This was in spite of the fact that both his great-grandfather and his great-grandfather and his grandfather were World War I and World War II veterans, respectively. Both have been denied the rights, the benefits, and the opportunities to which white veterans and their families had access. Benefits that allowed millions of them to escape poverty and enter the middle and upper class. His father grew very poor, lonely, and struggled with profound feelings of neglect and abandonment. These experiences still cause intense emotions in both of his parents to this day. Shortly after the death of his grandmother, Marcel's parents separated and would eventually divorce, making the end of a relationship that had been marked by turmoil, including his father's own severe struggles with drug addiction. Marcel surely experienced much trauma of his own that included bullying, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and a strained relationship with his father. For a short time, he attended school in Atlanta. This period was marked by extreme loneliness as he was separated from his community for the first time in his life, and it was here that he experienced the onset of severe depression, something he would suffer from in deep agony for nearly 2 decades before receiving professional help. He was overjoyed to return home to his community, but his joy was not to last long. A development project to widen the highway by the state of South Carolina via eminent domain led members of his immediate and extended family to move elsewhere, and subsequent destruction of his beloved community. Why is this an important part of Marcel Dixon's life? Is because this is where he felt the largest shift of separation from his community, his neighborhood, and especially his family. See, I like to know the breaking point where you were essentially living your life, you went to college, you started teaching. What made you say, I want to do something not only for my family, not only for my district, or I want to do things for my people, right? I want to do something for my people. I don't only want to walk the walk, I want to talk the walk and talk the talk. So essentially, this is, in my opinion, where he kind of made a mental shift about the road he was now going to take, okay? Now, let me get back on it. I'm going to skip down a little bit here, family, because, again, it is lengthy. Now, I just made a note right here. This is professional teenage work background, some of the jobs that the brother had. Now, skipping along here, his celebrations, however, were always cut short. For every success he saw, far too many of his students, because, again, he is a teacher, and members of their families will fall into a life of crime and incarceration, language, and deep poverty, contend with serious illnesses of domestic dysfunction, suffer from untreated mental and physical illnesses, and become victims of gun violence, his older brother and one of his uncles being among that number. Even the students that would do things the right way, attend college, delay having children, marriage, and more often fare just a little bit better, meaning those people, family, who did all the right things according to the social construct of attending college and waiting to have kids and getting married, they only fared just a little bit better, he's stating. These experiences not only pained and embittered him, but they also made him even more aware of the deep racial disparities he had known and lived his entire life. Even being the most effective educator was simply not doing enough to tackle the severe systematic barriers that the majority of his students, especially his Black students and community, were having to face. Always being a very bold person, willing to put himself out there to speak out courageously and unrelentingly for what is right and against what is unjust, and challenge the status quo, even when it meant falling out of grace with many. He cast aside his long-held beloved religious convictions. He held aside his beloved religious convictions and entered the unfamiliar world of political advocacy, seeking to bring justice to people, especially his fellow Black Americans that have waited several centuries too long for such. Very, very powerful already. Marcel has seen how every aspect of his life ties back to this country's long history of anti-Black racism. And he is known for pushing himself to become the better version of himself, as his mother has always pushed him to be, and as he demands of his students. He is known for being audacious, even when he received the disfavor of those in power. He does not cease fighting for what is right. This is just what you will have with Marcel as your next representative. A person that will not cease fighting for you, even when it may not be the popular thing to do. A person that does not just feel empathy with whatever pain you are going through, whether it be racial, economically, education, social, physical, or emotional, but fully understands the agony that caused because he has experienced all of them throughout his entire life. Like many of the people he seeks to serve, his life has been rough. He has said the painful goodbyes. He has had the sleepless nights. He has shed the tears. He has felt the deep anger. He has been through the storm. And in many ways, he is still in it. Nevertheless, he stands in the rain with you, inviting you under his umbrella, doing exactly what he knows is necessary, what is right, until the sun shines again. And no matter what, we must believe that it will shine again. So that was a lot of his background, family. And again, we're definitely going to share some of the interview from Phil Scott podcast, and that would be for educational purposes. But it's important that I read through that so you understand his background, so you understand the connection that you have with him, the pain, the trauma. Like myself, when he was talking about his mom and his mother's mom being on drugs, my mother was on drugs as well. Okay, I never met my dad, so some of the same mental problem, not mental problems, but essentially the trauma that we are exposed to mentally because of a dysfunctional family structure, right? Not having, not knowing both parents and not having both parents for very long. Because my mother died at the age of 12 when I was 12 from lupus, besides her drug addiction. So there was a lot of pain and agony seeing her going through drug addiction, as well her suffering from lupus and then dying when I was at the age of 12. So I got help as well. I mean, I attended therapy for around 10 years altogether. And a lot of that was stemming from my childhood. A lot of trauma happened in my childhood. I think I was around 14 years of age, living with my aunt. She got robbed by the local drug dealers because essentially she was doing drugs, but selling drugs as well. So there was a lot of things that occurred in my life, in my childhood, that I totally related as soon as I read his story. Now, and again, from my perspective, from what I've done research on, I've never read that a candidate has revealed so much riveting information, but I know why he did it. See, it's kind of like that movie 8 Mile, when you know what somebody's going to pick at, what essentially Eminem did. He rapped about all the things they could rap about to belittle him. And he's making sure, essentially, he has all the skeletons out of the closet because, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, this young man is part of the LGBT community, but he would tell you verbally that his drive has nothing to do with LGBT, has everything to do with American descendant of slaves and Black American. He doesn't put LGBT before being Black first. And that's what really attracted me to really learning more about him and seeing that if he's on code and follow his trajectory and make sure he stays on code, as we may support him. Okay, because here's the thing, we continue to support people who never do anything for us. And quite frankly, we don't support people who talk like this. Because the first thing that we may say in a negative connotational way is we say, oh man, he ain't gonna never make it to office talking like that. But here's the thing, Okay, can you guys hear me now? I believe I accidentally hit the mute button. Sorry about that, family. Thank you for notifying me again. I've been having issues all night. But what I was saying, I was just reading some of the things that Marcel intends to do for the 6th District of South Carolina if he was to get into office, okay? He wants to ensure that classroom sizes are no more than 22 students to increase the likelihood of children retaining the information and also having access to the teacher, as well as making teachers' salary $60,000 will greatly improve their life as being teachers, because we don't understand teachers don't get paid any money. Okay, him being a teacher, he knows full well the amount of time, effort, hard work, and discipline that teachers need to have to go and teach a group of students nonetheless. Okay, so we would be better transportation, better Medicare and education, the brothers on top of it. But I want you essentially to hear from Marcel himself. Again, I'm going to the Philip Scott channel, and this is Fair Use. They did an interview, and in this interview, you have to go and look at this video for yourself. Okay, please go and support Phil Scott when it comes to this video. Very, very powerful interview he did with Marcel Dixon. And it was very riveting what the brother is saying and some of the questions he was answering. But I'm going to focus on one part of the interview. So, okay. So bear with me here, family. We're going to go over here. We're going to listen to this again. YouTube, this is Fair Use for educational purposes. Also, I'd like to support Phil Scott for doing this interview. So go over there and watch this video as well. So here we go, family.
And if you're making some headway with the 50 and ups, awesome. But for the record, what is going to make you different than Clyburn? What are you going to say about, let's start with the Congressional Black Caucus, right? Let's say you elected. What are you going to do different in the Congressional Black Caucus? Because right now, from what we see, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, if it's going to continue to run like this, like basically a congressional immigrant and people of color caucus,
exactly,
disband it. But what do you do if you would be elected?
Well, first of all, and I don't want to be graphic, but hell with the Congressional Black Caucus. They've already made it very clear for whom they stand, and it's apparently not us. And if they have a problem with my statement, how about they change my mind by showing me we, Black Americans who are descendants of those who were enslaved by the American government, show us where your main concern. What I plan to do the moment I get to Congress is start a reparations caucus, okay? Or a freedmen caucus to focus explicitly on us. And I will do that by means of the Freedmen's Bureau. And to answer the first part of your question, what makes me different from James Clyburn is that I am running on a message of reparations. My slogan right here, it says, repair Black America to fix America. Some people have said, well, how I know you ain't going to sell out when you get there? The way you know I'm not going to sell out, because I'm not selling out now. I've already had people confront me and say, well, you're a gay man. Why don't you put LGBTQ issues in your platform? I said, no. People have said, well, if you say you're against illegal immigration, as I do in my platform, people are going to call you xenophobic. I said, I've been calling names all my entire life. I'm a teacher. I taught elementary, high school, and middle school. If once you've taught middle school students, you've been called every name under the book. It don't bother me. People have said, well, what do you have besides reparation? I said reparation is the beginning, the middle, and the end. I have universal policies, but my platform is pure reparations. I have a Black agenda in my logo, so people can't be mistaken about what I'm running on. It ain't no way for me to hide it. I have always said the biggest mistake we make as Black American voters is that we think we have this mindset of, well, they have to do this in order to win the election. But once they get up to Congress, they're going to stand up for us. That's the mistake we were about to make for Jamie Harrison, who literally said when asked, what's your view on reparations? He said, what about poor white people? That's literally what that man said. And by the way, Jamie Harrison is a protege of Clyburn. No shocker there, right? People still had to believe that once he got to DC, he was going to become, Malcolm X, MLK, Fannie Lou Hamer. No, I say to people, the way a person runs is the way they're going to govern. because once you run a certain way, you are now going to be trapped, especially as a black politician, to stay governing that certain way. Because if you switch up, because you done sold out, the people that you sold out in order to get their vote, they're going to run you out. So I say, even if I fail, which I'm not, I'm going to stand on what it is that I'm standing for. And if I fail, at least I knew I stood up for something. I'm standing up on a reparations message. I'm blasting that loud and proud and clear.
Okay, so.
Well, family, that is Marcel Dixon. I would like not to steal too much of Phil Scott's video, which was expertly done by the brother. But nonetheless, hopefully you guys were intrigued and interested as I am. And if you want to support Marcel, he has a webpage where you can go to donorbox.org, Marcel for Congress. Okay, that's donorbox.org, Marcel for Congress. You can probably just type that in. And granted, I know that a lot of us don't live in South Carolina, but again, you got to have representative with this mindset that if we ever expect to have a fighting chance for reparations, okay? I'm on Clubhouse and I go to many of the different rooms on Clubhouse, these reparation rooms, and supposedly there's a lot of movement on the ground and getting certain people in place throughout the entire nation. But from my particular research, Marcel is by far one of the biggest names out there coming out of South Carolina nonetheless. But again, he's the one who's going to be pushing for our best interest. And just like anything, you know, money is always a motivator. Money is always the support. So I'm going to do a love gift here for him at one time, because I'm not a citizen of South Carolina, but I am a citizen of these great nations. And again, if this brother make up the Congress and sell out, then hey, he got me. But essentially, I'm still doing some research, but I will take some time here and support this brother. I don't want you guys to see my, basic information here. So that's why I went off screen. But I am going to support him. I'm going to give him about $100 here, which is not a lot of money, because I think essentially, I don't know the limit that you can do federally to support certain candidates throughout their the running year, because these votes will be coming up in November of this year against James E. Clyburn. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and support this brother very, very quickly, because I think it's important that we have people to fight for us on a legislative and political level. They asking all these questions. I don't know why, but nonetheless, I'm filling this out, family, and I encourage you, if you feel as though we finally have someone that's representing us on the national stage, for you to go ahead and donate some of your hardworking cash as well. Because look, if I look back on this and 10 years later we get reparation, then this is an investment. If I look back on 45, 6 years from now and nothing comes out of it, then I donate it to someone and pay their bills. I don't know. But nonetheless, I'm going to support this brother. We don't have guys like this who are essentially out here fighting. Give me 1 second, family. I don't want to mix my words with my money. All right. Okay. I want to make sure that this is going through. Just bear with me here. All right. So maybe I'll get an email or something, but it went right back to his page, but I did donate. Okay. And if you go to his page, Marcel for Congress, you can hit this donate tab up here, and it takes you right to where you can go. And you see him going to the court in his district, and it takes you right here where you can donate. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and promote this on my Twitter page as well. So if you guys want to go and utilize my Twitter page, I posted that so you guys can donate as well. And again, $10, $50, I did $100, and I'm not even a citizen or constituent in South Carolina. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And I do apologize for all the technical difficulties that I had during this broadcast in the beginning. also in the middle. But hopefully you got something out of it. And that is it for this evening. You guys have a great and wonderful Friday. And I'll see you guys on the next one. I'm going to play some music, and I'm going to get out of here, family. What a long night. Let me know if you guys are liking the commentary and oration. You know, anytime I get up here, I try to do financial and political because they coincide with one another. Anything that's political involves money. Anything political involves money. It has nothing to do about emotions, likes. This is about power, authority, and economic self-sufficiency. So I just want to reiterate that I have yet to find anyone running for office that their slogan is repair Black America to fix America. And he's running on a reparational ticket that like compensatory direct payment to American descendants of slaves. Something to think about. And again, that's Marcel for Congress, aka Marcel Dixon. If you guys are intrigued, research him, support him. If not, it's good entertainment for tonight. You guys have a good one.